Can I help you, mate?
Good afternoon, sir. This wouldn't happen to be the residence of Mr. Chris Harding, would it?
Yeah, that's me. Who are you?
Mr. Harding, I'm Sergeant Estevez of Thames Valley Police. We're conducting a criminal investigation of an event that took place on the east side of London on July the 5th. We found that you might have been present at the scene of the crime.
You here to arrest me or something?
Certainly not so, hoping that you could spare some time to answer some routine questions regarding the incident, which I thought we could do in the privacy of your own home. So, if you please.
Sure. Come in.
Ah, excellent. Delightful. Thanks. So, are you living here on your own?
No, my folks are working, but they'll be back later on.
Oh, that's fine. I should be gone by the time they get back. Now, Mr. Harding, I promise to be as quick as I can. I'm just going to ask you some questions, and all you have to do is answer as simply and as honestly as you can. Can you do that?
Yeah, no problem.
Right, well, let's start with a briefing. On July the 5th, 2010, between the hours of 6 and 7 p.m, a group of unknown youths broke into flat number 14A of Park End Street on the east side of London. Forcing entry into the flat, they brutally caused grievous bodily harm to an elderly woman. She was savagely beaten with what might have been blunt instruments. And the attackers attempted to rob the apartment. They made away with whatever expensive items they found, mainly jewellery and cash. They then fled the apartment with their stolen items, leaving their victim helpless. This was later assessed after we received an emergency call from the victim in question. When we arrived at the scene of the crime, she had barely enough strength to give us a statement. Does all this sound familiar?
Yeah, I've been hearing about it on the news and that.
It's been going national all week. The woman, aged 64, suffered multiple internal injuries, including bruised ribs and crushed kidneys. Unfortunately, she died in hospital yesterday from organ failure. Now, Mr. Harding, can you confirm for me that you were on Park End Street on that particular date?
Yeah, it was.
Now, can you remember exactly what you were doing on that day?
Well, nothing to do with that. I don't know anything about it.
Mr. Harding, we're not accusing you, and you're not by any means under arrest. We're just getting all the information we can from anyone possible in order to make our work easier, and we'd appreciate it if you could cooperate.
Alright, sorry.
No one's victimising you, just answer in your own time. Now, can you remember exactly what you were doing on that day?
Woke up in the morning, got a call from one of my mates asking if I wanted to hang out. Later on, went out with a bunch of my mates, went cruising around the shops and that. Went in a few music stores, have a gander, had KFC, then went to the park to eat it, and then we all went our separate ways back home.
Okay, going back to when you were in the park, do you remember seeing anyone enter the nearest apartment building when you were there?
Well, yeah, but people were going in and out all the time.
Okay, but do you remember seeing anyone looking suspicious? Anyone who looked like they didn't want to be seen? Maybe a group of young people?
Might have seen 2 or 3 going together at one point.
What time was this?
Could have been between 6 and 7.
Okay, now these particular people you saw, can you describe them to me?
How?
Oh, can you remember what they might have been wearing?
One of them might have been wearing a hoodie. Adidas hoodie. The other looked like he was wearing a denim jacket.
Hoodie and a denim jacket. And was there a third? Can you remember what he might have been wearing?
I don't know. Don't think I got close enough look.
That's okay. How old do you think they looked?
Could have been between 19, 25, something like that.
What about their faces? Can you recall what they look like?
No idea, sorry.
Well, just so happens that I have with me a photograph of one of the suspects in question. He was later taken into custody for further interrogation. Is he one of the people you saw going into the building?
Yeah, he looks like one of them.
Okay, Mr. Harding, just a few more questions. The people you saw going into the building, did it look like they were carrying any objects that might have been used as weapons to commit the assault?
No, they weren't carrying nothing. Oh, they might have been carrying bags. Might have had them in there.
Okay, and finally, did you see the same people exit the building about 15 or 20 minutes later?
No, I weren't in the park for long.
You just went home after?
Yeah.
Right, that should just about cover it. Unless there's anything else you can tell me.
No, that's it, I think.
Right, well, I've heard everything I need to hear. Thanks a lot for your time, Mr. Harding.
Glad to help, sir. It's been no problem. Is there anything else I can do for you while you're here?
No, that should just about do it. Unless you can tell me who did it.
No, sorry, got no idea.
That's what everyone says. But it's worth a shot.
So you got anyone else on your list today then, have you?
Fortunately for me, you're the only person I'm interrogating today. Just going to take everything here back to head office and fill in all the forms. Should be a waste of time.
What do you mean?
Well, we hardly achieve anything sitting around at the station most of the time. That's what I found out when I joined the service. You spend more time filling out paperwork than you do making arrests.
It's got to be done though. Someone's got to do it.
Well, no, but it just gets to me. In the back of my mind, I'm always thinking I could be doing so much more than sitting at a desk while the people I'm tracking down are on the loose.
But you always catch them in the end, don't you?
Pretty much. But then it just happens again, and again, and again. You arrest so many criminals, but they just keep on coming. I get sick of it sometimes. No matter how many cases you solve, there'll always be someone else on the run. Just makes you think as though people will never learn from their mistakes. Just makes you think, what's the point, really?
Point of what?
Arresting criminals who can never be taught a lesson.
I don't understand.
Others who share my living spend their whole lives trying to uphold the law. So what's the point in doing it if the whole world doesn't take it seriously? Someone gets charged for a crime, they pay the penalty, and yet they carry on getting into trouble for it afterwards. They just don't care.
So, if you catch the guys that are responsible for what we was just on about, then you'll put them in jail, right?
Well, like you said, my job is to catch whoever's responsible. After that, they'll get put in front of a judge and jury. They're the ones who'll decide their fate.
But that's good, isn't it?
Maybe in some ways. But for most people, and the amount of money they charge for fines, however much community service they do, or whatever amount of time they spend in prison, is simply not enough to put an end to their destructive lifestyle. That's what I think. Do you know what I also think? Only because I've been doing this job for so long. After all the years I've spent collecting evidence that proves criminals are guilty of theft, rape, or even murder, I think about what I could do that the law doesn't provide. Instead of letting them get off easy by letting the court decide what happens to them, why not inflict harsher punishment?
You do?
In a metaphorical sense, it would be like bringing the cane back into schools. The whole point's about discipline.
But time in a cell, that's fair enough, isn't it?
That depends on what you've been found guilty of. The people that fatally beat up that old woman, when caught, they'll probably be looking at 20 years of a life sentence, give or take. The court won't really care. It will just be another case. See, this is what I mean. All these unworthy sentences. That's what gets to me. Just out of interest, Mr. Harding, how do you personally feel about the justice system in this country?
What do you mean?
Well, do you think criminals are punished in ways in which they'll never commit a crime again?
Well, I think people experience their fair share, yeah.
Okay, but I personally disagree. I believe that our justice system isn't fair in any way.
Why?
Well, no matter how you've broken the law, you're always set free in the end, aren't you? Doesn't matter what you've done, even if you've killed somebody. You'll always be released from jail eventually. I'm sure you'll agree. A couple of years ago, on a quiet housing estate somewhere, a man was mowing his front lawn. His wife was inside the house and his 5-year-old kid was playing in the garden next to him. Sometime later, a total stranger runs into the garden and stabs him to death right in front of his family. He was later arrested, charged with murder, and given just 20 years from the statements given by the family witnesses. Now, for some people, 20 years may seem like a decent amount of time, but as I said, eventually he would be released. Early, if he gets time off his sentence for good behaviour. And when he is, everyone would have forgotten about what he did. Everyone, that is, except for the victim's friends and family, especially the wife and child watching. Not only would they be scarred for life by the brutal death scene, but they would know that the man that killed their loved one would be out there in the world somewhere, living his life as though nothing happened or even mattered.
Well, why don't they just put him away for longer?
That's a good question. One I've often asked myself. Apparently, all they came up with was insanity. I think it's because people just don't bother. To them, giving convictions is just a 9-to-5 job. Maybe if they put themselves in the victim's shoes, they would see things differently, like I do. It's not the first time it's happened. We arrest people for stealing cars, looting shops, sexual assault. They either get a firm talking to, a slap on the wrist, or a short amount of time in prison. It's a waste of time. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, you're saying that people should pay more for their crimes.
Yeah, that's right. It's the one thing I think about every day. Taking in people who have done the most horrible things, only for them to be released back into the world. It's a waste of time. I think that's why no one will ever really learn from their crimes, would you agree?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Just makes me wonder. Should you deal justice in the way you think it should be dealt?
Like what?
Well, say someone intentionally harmed a member of your family. What would you want to do?
Revenge, I suppose. Get back at whoever.
Yeah, you're right. Matter of fact, that's what would be on everyone else's mind. That's why I think every criminal should get what he or she deserves.
What did you mean a second ago about dealing justice?
I'm always hearing stories from people who are so upset because of what someone else has done. Whether it's burglary or murder or whatever, it's part of my job. Eventually I hear so many of these stories that I just can't take it. I start to feel their pain more and more. And when I eventually come face to face with whoever's responsible, I can't help but see the faces of the people they've hurt. And that's when it comes to me. What if I could do justice there and then? What if I could avenge the victims by causing them harm the way harm has been caused to others? Why show them any pity or mercy if they don't have the decency to do it for themselves? Once an offender, always an offender. If I could take vengeance for myself, I would.
Well, why don't they start doing it?
The law will never provide it. And for that reason, criminals will never be punished fairly, even though it seems like the right thing to do. You're right. They should pay more for their crimes. But there is one thing I love about my job. I started learning this at the beginning, and eventually it just became a skill. I would be able to tell you who's guilty and who's innocent, just by looking at them. Because I spent most of my time chasing suspects, I found that in every case I was arresting the same type of person. All I have to do is spot someone who looks like they've got something to hide. Anyone can do it.
How?
Well, I think everyone's secretly a judge of character, don't you?
They can be, yeah.
How about yourself?
Well, I couldn't say I don't do it much.
No, but subconsciously you might. It's the same with everyone. Say you're out there now and you see someone who looks a bit dodgy, someone you don't like the look of, you'd want to cross to the other side of the street to avoid them. And that's what makes my work easy. I use my subconscious judge of character to spot these people.
But don't you think you should get to know someone before you judge them?
That's true. But you know as well as I do that most people seem nice when you first get to meet them. Let's compare it for a moment. Imagine you're walking down the street and a smart man in a suit stops you and asks you if you have any spare change for the bus fare. Now, straight away this man's given off good vibes by his appearance, which means that you automatically trust him and give him the change that he needs. Now consider the same situation again. Only this time you're not stopped by a man in a suit, but by the authentic British chav. Tracksuit, cap, chains and so on. He asks you for some spare cash. You would say no and just carry on walking, probably without even making eye contact. It's because you want nothing more to do with him. That's why these days it's very easy to point fingers. Right, that's enough out of me. I must be off. I must thank you for your time, Mr. Harding, for your patience, and for your tea as well.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, and if you remember anything else about July the 5th, be sure to give me a call, won't you?
Sure.
You have yourself a good day, okay?
Yeah, you too. See you later.
See ya. Oh, there was something else. Sorry, do you mind?
No, not at all.
Sorry, it just slipped my mind. There was one extra surveillance photo we acquired of whom we expect to be the third party member from that day. Do you recognise that person?